Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm privileged to welcome a very leading personality from the world of publishing from Gurgaon, India, Mr. Neeraj Jain. Neeraj, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Ashutosh. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. Neeraj is the managing director India for Scholastic Inc., which is the world's largest children's book publisher. So, Neeraj, my first question before we start talking about Scholastic is that what inspired your transition from leading the finance function of an organization to a leadership role in the education and publishing sector, particularly children's books?
So my straight and honest answer to that, Ashutosh, would be that it was neither a planned move nor a very thought out decision, right? The way I put it is that it was being at the right place at the right time with the right people and above all the right attitude. What happened with me was, when I joined Scholastic, I came into finance function at Scholastic, and I had no intent of moving outside of finance. It's just that the whole mission and vision of Scholastic inspired me. I was always a person who was curious about what more can I do. And Scholastic was the kind of right organization, and I was surrounded by right people at that point of time who gave me an opportunity to learn and explore myself. Slowly it started building up, moving out of finance into a bit of operations and a bit of sales, and then trying to understand what the whole mission and vision of the company is, and getting completely intrigued by what we were doing as a model, both back in US as well as in India. And again, as I said, they were kind enough to give me an opportunity, and I was always curious enough to see what more could I do. And both of them blended well together with the right people in place. And that's where it happened. As I said, not a thought out decision, and not a planned move, completely unplanned. But when I look back today, I think that was meant to happen. And I'm enjoying this much more. And I always used to say finance is in my blood. Half of it was in my blood because I'm a Marwadi. The second half I acquired, and that's why that's my role. And today, when I look back, I think
amazing.
This is my role.
And as they say, the rest is history.
The rest is history.
Yeah. Fantastic. So let's talk Scholastic now, Neeraj. You are known for promoting the love of reading among children. You publish books, of course, but this was fascinating when I was preparing for my conversation with you. How do you define the mission of Scholastic in India?
So the way I define mission of Scholastic in India, and I'll take you back to the mission of Scholastic when it was set up. Right back in 1920, when Mr. Richard Robinson set up this company, the whole mission of the company was to help teachers in delivering what they were supposed to deliver in the classrooms. Right, and 103 years later, the mission remains just the same, and not just in US, in the other parts across the globe, even in India, the mission remains the same. I always use this example as if you see a Ferrari and you see a toy Ferrari, the only difference is the scale, right? That's exactly how India and US are. It's just the scale that differs, but everything that we do is exactly the same. So our objective was always to support the teachers in what they were supposed to deliver in the classrooms. Back in early 30s, we realized that reading was a big challenge that they were facing back in US. And we started working with schools closely to promote the habit of reading. A lot of people think that Scholastic was the largest children's book publishers, and that's why they ventured into reading. Actually, it's the other way around.
I see.
Because we ventured into the space of promoting the habit of reading, we got connected, and we are the only publisher. If you look at across the globe, all the publishers, we're the only publishers who are connected to our consumers as well as customers.
Amazing.
Because for us, the customers are parents and schools, and consumers are children, right? And we have a direct connect with them. And that's what gives us the insights about what they love reading. We put that into our publishing program, and that's how we're publishing more books which children are reading. And that's what made us the world's largest children publisher. And our story in India is exactly the same. Our mission
Mm.
in India is exactly the same. How can we connect more and more readers to books so that they can enjoy the journey of reading
Mm.
and have a better life?
Amazing, amazing. And I'd also love to get your perspective on how are some of the reading habits of children evolving in India. I know
Mhm.
I grew up reading Enid Blyton, and before that Noddy, and before that
Yeah.
a whole lot of other kinds of books. How is the reading habit evolving in children in India, and what role do books play in overall development?
Look, in terms of reading habits, I think it's been a journey. But even when I look back to, as you mentioned, your childhood, if I go back to my childhood,
Mm.
and I see what we loved reading, and when I kind of look at today, and Scholastic also does a lot of research in terms of what kids want to read, because for us that's one of the most important things. Some of
Mm.
it comes from our data because we are connected to them, but some of it also comes through the research that we carry out across the globe.
Mm.
So what we see is, and then that's, I will be very honest, that's across the globe, the top 4, 5 categories of what they want to read
Mm.
as children remains exactly the same. The top category being humor. So whether it's US, UK, India, Canada, the top category is humor. Only the percentage changes. It's
Mm.
everywhere excess of 50%.
Mm.
Uh, and humor is what children want to read. They want to read the books where the characters are brave and strong and they want to be like them,
Mm.
right? Third is the books that make them learn something,
Mm.
right? New things that they introduce.
Right.
Uh, Fourth being that there's a mystery to solve in that book,
Correct.
right? And if you now try to put together with what kids are reading today, especially the middle grade readers, it's the Geronimo Stilton Diary of Wimpy Kid, it's
Mm.
Bad Guys, it's Dog Man, Horrid Henry, and this is across different publishers that I'm
Mm.
mentioning, because we make sure that we're talking about all the different publishers, because we can't do everything on our own,
Correct.
right? So all of these books, you'll find one thing in common is those top 4 categories are applicable to all of them.
Mm.
Again, we go back to our childhood. What I loved reading, like you said about Noddy and Eden Blyton, Chacha Chaudhary was one of my favorite. Right now, look at it. It has got all the 4 of those criterias. Then there was this detective series of Hardy Boys and
Yeah.
Rajan Iqbal, which came out of India.
Mm.
Again, some of those the criteria that we talked about are exactly the same.
Mm.
So it's all about giving them in a format that they enjoy reading,
Mm.
but giving them what they love reading
Right.
is the secret sauce to evolving their reading habit. One big thing that is evolving today
Mm.
is the rise of graphic novels,
Correct.
right? So what we are seeing is the graphic novels are becoming more and more popular,
Mm-hmm.
and kids are enjoying that a lot more. And so that's why you see there's a lot of different kinds of graphic novels coming in,
Mm.
from the early childhood stage to middle grade readers to even the senior grade
Mm.
readers. So a lot of graphic novels are coming in, and that's one of the big changes that I see in the last 7, 8 years.
Mm. Very interesting. Very interesting. The other aspect that I thought I'd love to get your perspective is with the rise of technology
Yeah.
and the all-encompassing screen time. How do you ensure books remain engaging for young readers?
Look, one, I would want to kind of, I have a slight bit of difference of opinion when people say that it's the technology and it's the screen time that's
Mm.
taking kids away from the books.
Mm.
Uh, I always believe that, there were always something available as a distraction
Correct.
to take you away from reading if
Mm.
if the environment was not conducive enough for reading,
Yeah.
right? Back in our childhood days, when the technology was not there, it was the outside world, right? The sport. We were so much involved in sports outside home
Right.
that was a distraction. Today, technology is a distraction. Only thing is that, if we focus on giving them the right conducive environment for reading,
Mm.
then probably they will stay connected to books.
Mm.
One of the very important aspects there is giving the choice to them.
Mm.
The kids, a lot of time what we do, and that's a mistake, and that's
Mm.
also the research pointing out, is we tell them what to read rather than letting them explore what to read.
Right.
And I always say this to parents, teachers, educators, principals, that what is more important for you?
Mm.
Kids reading or kids reading what you want them to be reading? If your
Mm.
answer is second, keep working on this question till your answer becomes first.
Mm.
Because if kids start reading, then eventually they'll read what you want to read.
Mm.
But if you force them to read what you want them to read, they probably will move away from reading.
Mm.
Second important thing is that explore with the formats of books. And that's what we do with, as I said, graphic novels is becoming
Yeah.
very popular.
Mm.
So we have to bring in a different genres, different subgenres, so that it can interest different audiences
Mm.
and according to their tastes, and also play with formats, because what appeals to me as a format might not appeal to you,
Correct.
right? So a lot of exploration has to be carried out so that we are able to address a larger audience. I read somewhere, we used to use this terminology as something called reluctant reader,
Mm-hmm.
but then somebody corrected me that there is nobody called reluctant reader. It's only that they've not been evolved in the journey of reading, right? So, and that happens when they explore different kinds of
Yeah.
text types
Mm.
and different formats in which those text types are provided,
Right.
right? So, as publishers, what we can do is give them enough different genres,
Mm.
make it fun, make it exciting for them, make it cool,
Mm.
give them the right environment, and
Mm.
I think environment is very, very important.
Mm.
And if we are doing that and we're doing it in different kind of formats, I think we've done our duty.
Wonderful. Great response. Thank you. The other aspect of that is there in India is the diversity of culture and diversity of languages. How do you ensure your books resonate with diverse cultural and linguistic audiences?
So I would say that there's a lot of work that needs to be done there,
Mhm.
but slowly we're moving in that direction, and a lot of other people are also. There was a phase in India where we were taking a lot more from the Western world
Mhm.
and consuming that. Not that that has changed. Still, the consumption of uh, global literature
Mhm.
or global books published in the global environment still remains very high.
Mhm.
But in last 3-4 years, what I've seen is, and then that's also because of the national education policy talking about it,
Mhm.
and there is a lot of parents like us are also now moving towards the fact that how can we connect children to our cultural heritage,
Right.
our mythology, and our ethos. So the children books in that aspect are evolving.
Mhm.
Language publishing is also regional language publishing is also on increase. At
Mhm.
Scholastic, we published in 15 different Indian languages, but that's more to work with the state governments and the NGOs to kind of facilitate those kind of things being available. But at the same time, a lot more needs to be done, and we see the growing need in the market.
Mhm.
And I'm sure one example that I closely follow is that if you try to learn from different industries what they're doing,
Mhm.
then it gives you that answer. And this is why we are moving more towards now regional languages and Indian culture and heritage,
Mhm.
is because if you look at rise of social media,
Mhm.
right? Now that could not have happened if it was not provided in the language of
Correct.
consumption,
Correct.
right? If Facebook or WhatsApp decided that it would stay only in English,
Mhm.
they would have not had these many millions of users in India.
Yeah.
It was only possible when they took it down to the language that people were comfortable in,
Mhm.
right? And that's where I think I'm drawing my learning from there. If we have to grow the readers in this country, we
Mhm.
have to make sure that we are doing it in the regional languages so
Mhm.
that they can consume the content in the language that they're comfortable in, and also bring in some content which is Indian mythology. As I said, Indian mythology, Indian culture, heritage. Kids today in India know more about Greek mythology because there are a lot of children books written about Greek mythology.
Correct.
So a lot more needs to be done in that space. Good thing is it has started happening.
Mhm.
It has to gather momentum and pace, and I'm sure it will gather,
Mhm.
because if you have to grow this market, we have to take care of these things.
Amazing. Thank you. My next question is that, over the last decade, I've seen an explosion in the number of Indian authors coming.
Yeah.
I'd love to get your thoughts on how is the demand for local or Indian authors as compared to the international titles that are available in India.
Look, a very honest thing is that obviously the international authors sell much more than the Indian
Correct.
in most of the cases. I won't say in all of the cases,
Mm,
in most of the cases, right? Barring a few which are selling big numbers now,
mm,
most of the Indian author books are not selling as big numbers
mm,
as the foreign published authors are, right?
mm,
Uh, Having said that, what I'm seeing on a gradual basis is that the books published by Indian authors are seeing an increase. And there are two reasons to that. One,
mm.
there's a demand for Indian authors, as you rightly mentioned.
Yeah.
But second thing is, and what I am noticing is some of the new authors are experimenting in the way they write,
Mm,
right? And I think that's very important, a lesson to learn for all who are aspiring to be authors, is that, learn from what's happening around you,
mm,
talk to children and see what is it that they enjoy more,
mm,
right? So recently, some of the books that we've done, we're seeing uh, not a big jump, but a significant jump in terms of the number of copies that they used to sell, because we as publishers are giving them inputs.
mm,
We share with them the analytics, and secondly, the newer authors who are coming in
mm.
are open enough to experiment,
Right.
right? And it's all about what connects. As they say, J.K. Rowling was rejected so many times before she
And,
was actually published,
mm,
right?
mm,
But it's always about, okay, let's experiment and see will it connect with the consumers or not.
mm. Amazing.
Sometimes the publishers would be the bottleneck, but more often than not, they are also open to experimenting nowadays.
Well said. Well said. My next question, Neeraj, is how important is the role of parents and teachers to foster a reading habit in a child? And how do you at Scholastic support them?
Oh, I think the role of teachers and parents is so critical and
Mm,
important,
mm,
that I can't just find the right words to say. It's actually one of the most important pieces,
mm,
right? Often neglected. We feel that we don't have a major role to play, but it's a very important role that they play. And what we do is, and again, I'll bring back our research. Through our research, we bring in those findings and we share it with as many parents as we can, but we
mm,
share it definitely with all the schools, all the publishers, all the educators, all the principals. So reading as a habit, if you want your child to be a reader, I always say that, if I want to bake a cake, what I need is the ingredients and
yeah.
the recipe, right? Now that's all set if I want my child to become a reader.
Mm,
The four pillars that the reading stands on is excess of books,
mhm,
choice, which you have to leave it to the children,
yeah.
involvement,
Mm,
and reading practice,
mm,
right? Now look at it. To provide the excess of books to the children,
mm,
critical role is played by both the parents and the
mm,
schools
mm,
teachers, is
mm.
to have that kind of library where you've got all kinds of books, and you
Correct.
also need to have a smaller home libraries as well,
Mm,
right?
mm,
Second thing is choice. Again, a very important role. How to not get involved in telling them what to read.
mm.
That's also an important. Sometimes not doing anything is more important than doing a wrong thing, right?
Correct. Correct.
Third piece, which is involvement, and
Mm,
that's where the role comes. Read alouds,
mm,
often neglected, is a very, very important enabler in your child becoming a reader.
mm,
Often people say that India as a society was never a read aloud society, but I always tell them India as a society was a storytelling society.
correct.
Today, we don't have storytelling culture at home because it's nuclear families, both parents
Mm,
working. So
mm,
read alouds come in. And when the read alouds are not offered at home, it has to come in school. So the teachers become more important.
correct.
And in the involvement side, it's also about being involved in the journey of reading of your child, right? It's also about bringing the right kind of books,
Mm,
exposing them to right kind of books. But
mm,
more importantly, are you a reading role model?
mm,
If your children see you as parents carrying a book with you or reading a book,
mm.
they're more likely to pick up the habit of reading.
Correct.
As a teacher, if you're seen with a book, as a principal, if your room has got equal amount, if not more, equal amount of books as trophies, it is a message that you're sending out to kids,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So read alouds, books being seen, teachers walking with books, talking about books, book discussions at home, at school. That's what is going to foster the habit of reading.
Amazing. Amazing.
Right? So very, very critical, very, very important. So please, any parent listening, any teacher listening to this podcast, you play a very, very critical role in the child becoming real.
Amazing. Thank you. Time for two more questions.
Yep.
Neeraj, you're also the chair of the FICCI Publishing Committee.
Yes.
How do you advocate for children's publishing in India?
Yep. So as a chair of FICCI Publishing Committee, I have to do the advocacy for not just children publishing, but also the other.
All publishing.
Right? All publishing, right? So on one side, I engage with all the publishers, irrespective of whether they're coming from children's space, education space, young adult space, journals, all the publishers, so that I know what are the issues that they are facing, so that we can take it back to the bureaucracy, the state governments, the central government, the governing councils, in a way that they see that it is an advantage for them, while it is also an advantage for the publishers, right? So we kind of, the role that we play as FICCI Publishing Committee would be channelizing it, the concerns of the industry in a very meaningful way back to the bureaucracy and the governing councils, so that we can not just make them understand what are the challenges, but also go back to them with solutions. And solutions have to be presented in such a way that they see it as an advantage for them as well as publishers. Because in life, there is no win-lose situation, right? Correct. There's always a win-win situation. One of the biggest pieces that I'm working on currently as FICCI chair on children publishing side, because your question was there, is on trying to create a need and a model which would work of creating libraries, community libraries in all the villages. Because look, there was a big campaign that was started by the shaving industry called Let's Shave, when a lot of men started having stubble.
Correct.
Right? And I think an equal amount of campaign is of an equal footing, the campaign is required. Let's read. And sometimes setting up these libraries would bring children closer to reading. And as they say, if they start reading, we all would have a larger market to address.
Amazing.
Right? Yeah. So I'm working on that. So these are some of this is one of the initiatives that I mentioned, but there are all similar kind of initiatives that we keep on working with, on one side with the publishers and on the other side with the bureaucracy and the governing councils.
Amazing. And my last question for you, Neeraj, and this is for you. What is your personal relationship with reading? And are there any children's books that have left a lasting impact on you?
Oh, there are many. There are many. So if I have to start from my reading journey as a child, as I said, Chacha Chaudhary was my favorite as a child growing up, right? On one side, you had Chacha Chaudhary, whose mind worked faster than computer, but we had no clue what computer was, right? And on the other side, you had Sab, who would come from Jupiter, and at that point of time, we didn't have that much knowledge about Jupiter, right? So it fostered creativity, and they were always solving something or the other, right? So that was my favorite, and had an impact on me. As I grew up, Rajan Iqbal and Hardy Boys were my hot favorites. Then came a period when I was not reading as much, right? And then I came back into reading, and I've read various kinds of books. It's the fiction side that interests me always. But even on the non-fiction side, one book that has had a huge impact on me is Fountainhead by Ayn Rand. I think that's a book that has had a huge impact on me, and that's a book that I've read, reread, and reread.
Correct.
Every time it gives me a different message, and that's the best thing about books, right? When you read a book again, it gives you a different message.
Absolutely.
Right? So that's my favorite. There's a book called Do Nothing. There's a book called You Incorporated, which is talking about you as a brand. It's like your thing, that brand called you. It's You Incorporated, which talks about an individual as a brand. And then there's a book called How Full Is Your Bucket? All of these have got an impact on me. But if today I have to talk about it, as a grown-up adult, picture books have a much deeper impact on me than anything else. And I think one of the biggest disservice that we've done to picture books is by categorizing them as books meant for read alouds and for toddlers. I think picture books are books meant for every age group.
Correct.
You've got such brilliant messages going across, and so well written and so well done, so easy to consume, and
Amazing.
beautiful. So a lot of books have an impact on me, and a lot more children books have an impact on me. Just to kind of round it up, I've read Ikigai, and then I read Ikigai for Teens. Both are very well written. Both are written by the same authors. Ikigai for Teens had a bigger impact on me than Ikigai meant for adults. I think I kind of took pride in that, saying that because of two reasons probably. One, it kind of blends itself very well, not just for teens but for also adults.
Right.
But I think the teen inside me is still alive, and that's why it resonated with me a lot more. So that's also to make myself feel younger.
How amazing. How amazing. And given the fact that you were, working with children's books, I'm sure the child inside you will also always stay alive.
Yeah.
But Neeraj, on that note, I just want to say thank you so much for speaking to me about your own journey. I think it's been such a fascinating conversation on books, something that I'm very passionate about. Thank you for speaking to me about Scholastic, your mission in India. We covered a lot of interesting points on how we can get children to read. And I loved your perspective that let the child pick up the book first rather than the parent deciding what the child should read. And before you know it, the child will probably be reading the books that the parent wants them to read.
Exactly.
Thank you for talking to me about, you actually cleared something in my mind about the whole challenge of technology and screen time, where you said that it's not technology and screen time. When I was growing up, there was cricket outside, on the lawn outside, and there were so many other diversions. It would, as you said very correctly, it would be wrong to pass it off and say because of technology and screen time, our children are not reading. Thank you also for the amazing pieces of advice you've given for getting people to read. And finally, thank you for talking to me about some of the books that you love. Ayn Rand is my favorite author as well, and I've read her many, many times.
Yeah.
Thank you for speaking to me, and good luck to you.
Thank you so much, Ashutosh. It was a pleasure being here.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.